Hello, this is week 13 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator, Chief Quietwater, Chief Blackcoat, as well as Chief Akibalan. And here we focus more so on the first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Starting off, we will have Chief Alligator read the 12 steps.
Okay, 13-week practical program of action for each American prisoner of war. Step 1, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Step 2, who established that estate. Step 3, what nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European. Step 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend, what's your position on reparations? Step 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then immediately children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3, and field trips to ADOS landmarks in that city, county, and state. Step 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Step 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas station, nail salons, subways, etc. Step 8, all businesses need operating cash, spend money with American Black businesses. Step 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. Step 10, the US government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debt and taxes. American prisoners of war no longer have faith in the US government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Step 11, teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. A, have them learn about an American inventor. B, have them know about our heroes. C, they should know the European that conquered the estate you live in. D, they should know the nation of people prior to European invasion militarily and culturally. 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming America and attaches us to the history and laws of the US government. Every estate American descendants of slavery, American prisoners of war live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, 1 fiscal quarter will bring us together for our common cause. And I will ask each one of you, which step sticks out to y'all this week?
For me, I would say with, it would be, where's that, number 6, in regards to celebrating holidays with Easter coming up. You know, just get off that merry-go-round of participating in things that just really don't make any kind of sense to us, and stop spending the money to support everything that has to do with the holidays and things like that, because it's just a roller coaster of keeping you broke, basically, and broke in.
I would agree. I think I'm gonna go with that one as well. What just happened St. Patrick's. So yeah, not celebrating European holidays. We're definitely going into the holiday season. That one does stick out a lot. I'll go with that one as well. Got Easter coming up, 4th of July, a lot of things that, like Chief Quietwater said, keep you on that merry-go-round.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah, each fiscal quarter is going to have at least 3 major holidays that they want to, collect funds off of. So like you all saying, just if we're doing this each fiscal quarter, not participating in these European holidays, then we should be good. Mine kind of piggybacks off of that. Number 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive, set the trends of making other groups follow our lead. We are already kind of like trendsetters anyway. Anything that we do, anything we touch, we make cool, we make people want to, do it, want to be a part of it. So let's, take that energy and focus it on, certain things, certain tasks. Like, yeah, we can still do that, but again, make sure it's being done in our clubs, our services, our products that we are have ownership or are running at that time. So that's definitely something that sticks out to me.
Chief Pico, because as you just said, everything that we do or touch becomes what everyone wants to do. And I feel like if we direct our energy towards things that are going to build us instead of be popular and destroy us, I think that it's a lot to change.
Today, for me, I would say number 3. What nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European? This landmass had confederacy as government. So I would say that would be a huge part of recovery when it comes to American history, that our ancestors had a confederacy form of government, and breaking that mental brainwash of seeing the redneck with the rebel flag, thinking that basically they traded places with us. So that would be huge for me, really understanding how this land was being governed and operated.
Great point. Great point. I'll start with we're going to jump to Chief Blackcoat with the Inventor for this weekend. You're on mute there.
I apologize, guys. So this week we got John Albert Burr. Right here, we got a depiction of what he is known for. He has the patent number to the Rotary lawnmower, patent number being 624749. He received that patent on May 9th, 1899. A little bit about Mr. John. He holds over 30 patents for lawn care and agriculture care. He was born May 20th, 1848, and he died in 1926. There we go.
When was his death? Can you repeat the death again?
He died in 1926. Was born May 20th, 1848, and his death date known is 1926. From there, John Albert Burr. So today, who knows what we will be doing to cut grass or to keep the grass low, but Mr. John, he sealed that up back in the 1800s. He corrected that, no more dirty lawns. Today we got rules for different neighborhoods having to keep your lawn a certain, look. So Mr. John right here, he allows that to keep going.
What percentage of income do we receive from that industry?
0.
Hey, so John Deere.
Right.
We can
Powerful.
He was a mechanical engineer as well. We can clearly see that with all the gears and the moving parts. So again, this was a scientist. This whole idea that we were slaves and couldn't think, again, here's another lord that created an industry.
Yeah, Chief of Cubalon said something. Yeah, you threw that out there. John Deere. Chief Biko, if you want to pull up John Deere real quick. And well, we don't got to see who's the owner or CEO or whoever runs that whole operation. But that's probably like the #1 lawn care retailer.
But that because I know what John Deere is. I don't know. I know that our people don't own it, but I know what that is. But we don't know the person who made the rotary system that is being. They don't know that the rotary system is basically what creating this whole industry that we are not a part of.
Correct.
Excellent point. Correct, though. Correct. Without John Burr, there would be no companies like John Deere who
Right. Sell lawnmower.
Yeah, riding lawnmowers, all different kinds.
Growing up, my granddaddy got a riding lawnmower, and we just wanted to ride it so bad. Never got on that thing.
I'll go ahead and jump into the quote for this week. This week I will do quote number 2 by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Quote number 2 reads, Negroes, however, sometimes choose their own leaders, but unfortunately, they are often of the wrong kind. Negroes do not readily follow persons with constructive programs. Almost any sort of exciting appeal or trivial matter presented to them may receive immediate attention and temporarily, at least, liberal support. When the bubble collapses, of course, these same followers will begin to decry Negro leadership and call these misrepresentatives of the group rascals and scoundrels. So definitely stuck out to me kind of this week as well, seeing a lot of, I forget the lady's name that just got appointed another Supreme Court judge. It was the first American Supreme Court judge. And seeing a lot of stuff on my timeline just in regards to her her stand on certain topics, and regards one that keeps being pushed out and pretty much has gone viral was her stand against sexual offenders. So that in itself was pretty eye-opening. Didn't watch the whole thing because again, we know this system isn't built for us. So didn't even, waste my time of looking into it, but that definitely stood out to me in regards to that, how we happy just to have somebody in there that looks like us, but on the other hand, what are they going to actually do for us? So definitely something that stood out to me this week. Next, we will have Chief Quietwater with the legal definitions and maroon historical points.
I'll start off with the legal definitions. Number 1, American, a native of America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, schools, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. Maroon historical points. Number 1, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, maroons knew European enemies, language, defenses, and plans.
Thank you, Chief Quietwater. And last but not least, our constitutional readings, Article 1, Section 10, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So again, kind of just highlighting what we read in the beginning of each class with the 12 steps of how the gold was taken out of this system. Excuse me. So the actual money was taken out of the system because again, that gold standard act no longer backed the dollar by what is stated here in the Constitution, gold and silver, which would be the only thing that is payment of debts. It also highlights how the seceding states could not be a part of a confederation. So I think, again, just 2 things that kind of highlights pretty much a lot of stuff that we went over within this past fiscal quarter in regards to breaking down the fake narrative of it being a civil war, in which why we call it a civil rebellion, and also just highlighting that those seceding states could not become a confederation, especially based off of their constitution that they all agreed upon in 1789. Next, we'll jump down to Article 6, where we read that this treaty is the supreme law of the land. So it reads, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again, this is just highlighting that the treaty is the supreme law of the land underneath the US Constitution, underneath this US government structure. Move up here to section 2, Article 2, section 2 rather, where we read about the powers of the president. The president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states. So again, just highlighting that the president has power not only over the Army, the Navy, but also over the militia of several states. So that doesn't just mean the militia of Georgia or South Carolina. That means the militia or the states that have any militias in any state. So whether it's in Oregon, Washington, wherever, the commander-in-chief, aka the president, has control over the militia. I think that was the last thing to read here before we jump into the American Treaty of 1866. I know last week we left off in section Article 3 rather. Yeah, highlighted here. So yeah, this is basically just to kind of briefly summarize. They did mention again 40 acres. So this is again another document that mentions 40 acres. And now again, as we continue to work these documents, trying to see which one aligns with our group of people. The other previous documents, none of those aligned with us. And if they did align with us, they didn't come from the correct authority, aka the Special Field Order number 15. So in this one, we're going to continue to work this document to see if anything is pertaining to us. We've seen something that we haven't seen in any other previous document, which is the African descent. So that basically just highlights that they accounted for Africans that were being shipped over from Africa to the Americas. So understanding that, then they know the exact number of them, so they know that it wasn't many of them. Because again, one thing about the European, they are going to account for everything on this land that they can. Let me see here. Trying to see where I should start. I'll just jump in here. After the Choctaws and Chicasaws and Kansas Americans have made their selections as herein provided, and immediately on the enactment of such laws, rules, and regulations, the said sum of $300,000 shall be paid to the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nations in a proportion of 3/4 to the former and 1/4 to the latter. So 3/4 of this $300,000 shall be paid to the Choctaw, and 1/4 of it shall be paid to Chickasaw nation. Less such sum at the rate of $100 per capita, as shall be sufficient to pay such persons of African descent, again, seeing as African descent here, before referred to as within 90 days after the passage of such laws, rules, and regulations shall elect to remove and actually remove from the said nations respectively. So again, they're just setting limitations, kind of highlighted it last week, just a bad deal. For one, they already have given up a piece of the territory that was supposed to be allotted to them without receiving the actual compensation. So as we kind of just summarize what we went over last week, the United States government is going to hold those $300,000 or that $300,000 in a trust until the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations enact these rules, laws, and regulations, basically forbidding slavery unless convicted of a crime or convicted of punishment. Anybody want to piggyback off of that? Good.
I'll just add, it sounds like we're about to go into some dangerous situations. Money being allotted, people being squeezed into small areas. We'll see how this turns out.
Right, correct. And should the said laws, rules, and regulations not be made by the legislatures of the said nations respectively within 2 years from the ratification of this treaty, then the said sum of $300,000 shall cease to be held in the trust for the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. So I'll just read this again. and should the said laws, rules, and regulations not be made by the legislature of the said nations respectively within 2 years, so they're giving them 2 years after the ratification of this treaty to pretty much have everything in order, have these laws enacted, then the said sum of the $300,000 shall cease to be held in trust for the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nations and be held for the use and benefit of said persons of African descent as the United States shall remove from the said territory in such manner as the United States shall deem proper. So it looks like here, if they don't get their act together in establishing these rules, laws, and regulations within that 2-year time frame, that $300,000 that was supposed to be allotted to them will now be given to those slaves of African descent that were on these particular nations' territories or reservations.
That's if they get it together, correct?
Yeah, if
Meaning
they,
like-
I think if they don't get it, then they, well, if they don't establish these rules, laws, and regulations, then they won't be given that 300,000. This will be given
Correct.
directly to the African descent slaves. At least that's how I'm reading it. That cease is kind of what's throwing me, shall cease to be held in trust.
Meaning they'll stop holding their money from them.
Correct.
So like I said, the United States government is still holding the $300,000, and it's saying 2 years it'll cease, meaning it'll stop. They'll allow the Chickasaw and Choctaw to run operations with that 300,000. That's what I'm getting.
And then where it says that the United States, in such manner as the United States shall deem proper, and we know they
Right.
don't, that's that word play that they're using. What
That's
is,
why I smile.
yeah, what constitutes proper? Mhm.
Yeah, you never get that 300.
Correct.
Go up one real quick, Chief Biko. There's one thing we skipped in that first thing you read, right after it says per capita, where it says that shall be sufficient.
Right there.
A
Shall
little bit more. Right,
Okay.
Right there.
to the right. Yeah, right there. Highlight that. As shall be sufficient to pay such persons of African descent before referred to as within 90 days after the passage of such laws, rules, and regulations. Here we go. Shall elect to remove and actually remove from the said nation. Sounds like they can kick the Africans out the nations once they give them the $100. I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, so
What was that, Chief? Keep along.
but it's like they pay you to be an exile to leave the nation.
Right.
the exile, yeah. They definitely gonna get removed them. Let's see here. Okay. The United States agreeing within 90 days from the expiration of the said 2 years to remove from said nation all such persons of African descent as may be willing to remove. Those remaining or returning after having been removed from said nations to have no benefit of said sum of $300,000, or a part thereof, shall be upon the same footing as other citizens of the United States in the said nation. So what I'm getting here is that those who have been, again, exiled or removed from these nations, upon returning, they will not have any benefits to that nation or of that nation. So they won't be classified as a Choctaw, as a Chickasaw, and that they will be treated as a regular US citizen, basically coming onto their reservations, their nation's property pretty much at this point. So they can pretty much do with them as they see fit underneath their government structure is how I'm reading this.
Yeah, basically they get $100 and that's it. Yeah, they get no portion of that $300,000 that the nation got directly. So it's kind of like a bad deal for them. How much would $100 go for them back then?
Right. It sounds like they're giving Choctaw, Chickasaw some type of false power to allow them to do whatever with arrogance. Yeah, you can be a part of the tribe, or so they're giving them this false sense of power. $100, little things the European doing right here is what I'm picking up.
Anything else, Chief Keevaline, Chief Whitewater?
I agree with what everyone else says.
No. My bad, Chief Keevaline, I didn't get that.
I just said I think I hit the nail on the head.
Got you. I'll continue here in Article 4. The said nations further agree that all Negroes not otherwise disqualified or disabled shall be competent witnesses in all civil and criminal suits and proceedings in the Choctaw and Chickasaw courts, any law to the contrary notwithstanding, and they fully recognize the right of the freedmen to a fair remuneration on reasonable and equitable contracts for their labor, which the law should aid them to enforce. So again, they switch up here and say that the said nation further agree that all Negroes not otherwise disqualified or disabled. So again, going back to kind of what that Special Order 15 was, Negroes, so they're making a clear distinction between Negroes and this African descent. So that's one thing you need to make sure that we're overstanding and that the viewer is comprehending that these aren't the same people. Negroes and African descent, not the same. If that was the case, and they just would have called them African descent, or they would have called these people Negro. So again, they're clearly accounting for this separate group of people. And it says here that shall be competent witnesses in all civil and criminal suits and proceedings in the Choctaw and Chickasaw courts, any law to the contrary notwithstanding, and they fully recognize the right of the freedmen to a fair remuneration on reasonable and equitable contracts for their labor. So it looks like here that they're saying that these Negroes should be compensated fairly based off of their contracts that they have, I guess, regarding or with these particular nations, the Choctaw and Chickasaw. And that they would be pretty much able to, I'm looking at this as being like almost like a juror within their civil and criminal suits. So they can actually be sitting there looking at what's going on and having power to make sure that they're enforcing the correct procedures that should be going on within these nations. At least that's what I'm getting from this first part.
I'm getting a little different viewpoint. The Negro, like you said, key word, that's representing the people in the Southeast region of North America. That pertains to the Special Field Order number 15. Then when they say the freedmen, remember from the 1866 Freedmen's Bureau Act, that's the peasant European that got his rights through the Civil Rebellion.
Right.
So that's allowing, quote unquote, poor white trash in that Midwest area west of the Mississippi to labor.
Get equitable. Gotcha. Correct. Correct.
The Negro is the ones that are occupying from South Carolina all the way to Florida. The freedmen were the European that got their rights through the War Department.
Correct. Correct. Great point out. Great point out there.
Can't forget that part. Anybody else want to build on that?
No, that's what I was thinking as well. Negroes are still referred to Chickasaw, Choctaw type people. And then African descent, which is going to be African descent. No, yeah, you said it.
This is just highlighting exactly what we read over in the Civil Rights Act too, 1866. Basically making sure that these laws that are in place are going to benefit them. Again, the newly freed slave, these European freedmen. I'll pick up here, and they agree on the part of their respective nations that all laws shall be equal in their operation upon Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, and that no distinction affecting the latter shall at any time be made, and that they shall be treated with kindness and be protected against injury. And they further agree that while the said freedmen, now in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nation, remain in said nations respectively, they shall be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves. And stop right here. So again, they're making a pretty intentional distinction between these three: Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes. I think we kind of highlighted it while reading the Special Field Order. I know Chief Blackcoat did. Negroes being the Americans that didn't go west of the Mississippi. So they're no longer a part of these nations, even though they could be, basically the family split, but they're saying that they're a nationless people. So we're going to just name them Negroes. And they're African. They're not of African descent. They're American, but we can't call them that because we've taken that position now as the European. So we're going to make that distinction that they're pretty much should be treated equally across the board. And then it's highlighting here again that kind of just piggyback earlier in Article 4, that the freedmen shall have their rights as well to own land and cultivate land for their families, respectively. And that's also within these particular territories that have been allotted to them.
So who's the freedman?
The freedmen, so who's the freedman?
Yeah, I'm just asking that question to everybody. Who is the freedman?
That
According
would be
The
the,
Europeans, right?
yeah, the European
Still white
refugees.
people.
So what we're seeing is a melting pot. We're seeing this military put Choctaw, Chickasaw, Negro, and peasant Europeans all in one nation.
Mhm.
And allowing Chickasaw, Chickasaw, and Choctaw to be the rulers, or giving them that piece of authority or power.
And what I noticed as well is that, like you said before, Chief Biko, how they're being intentional with separating the Negro from
That too.
the Negro from the ones of African descent. And then further on down the line, now we're African American. So it's like they merged us together, further on in time. But back then,
Great point.
there was a distinct difference between the two.
Right. Great point. Great point there.
Make a lot of sense.
Go ahead, Chief, keep it on.
I just said that make a lot of sense.
For sure.
Right, for sure.
And we can see how the Negro had a higher status than the freedman or the
Yeah.
descent, because the Negro has standing in law and in their court.
Mhm.
Right.
It didn't say the freedman has standing in law or the African person from descent has standing in law. Only the
Right.
Negro has standing in law.
They speak the same language.
And this would be, when you say under their court, this would be underneath the Choctaw, Chickasaw Nations Court, not the United
Right.
States government court, correct?
Right.
Okay, and I just want to make sure we're highlighting that distinction, because again, we're not citizens underneath this US government structure during this particular time. The
And
Negro,
Why wouldn't the freedman, why can't the freedman have the access the Negro has in their court? That further proves the freedman was the European, because he's coming from a different government. The freedman is from under the United States government, under the 1856 Civil Rights Act.
correct,
So that
great
European
point.
has no standing in their court. But that free Negro that never went west of the Mississippi, that Negro who's still
Yes.
Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw,
By blood and
has
stuff.
standing.
Mhm. Makes sense, makes
It's
sense.
4 different points. Don't let it confuse you. You gotta, that's why we read the document. You gotta cite back to what the document says so it won't confuse you.
Mhm. Great point. And not to jump ahead, but you can see how this could turn into a Greenwood situation, a Tulsa, Oklahoma situation. You're having these 4 distinct groups of people
All right.
in one area.
Think
And then
tanks.
again, as time progresses, these freedmen are just going to be stagnant as far as, just not, increasing their population.
Well, they're
So
just trying to
again,
fall in.
falling in, but then like, okay, we getting power. We know we had the backing of who? The US government.
Right.
So, okay, I can say my daughter was bumped on. My daughter can say that they were bumped in an elevator or touched on by this Negro.
The
And
weird
now
stuff.
we can go and wipe them out. So you can kind of just see how
I see where you're going with that one, for sure.
they mixed all of these, pretty much just creating a boiling pot that was bound to explode.
Right.
Let me see where I jump on. In cases where they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements without the consent of the occupant, it being understood that in the event of the making of the laws, rules, and regulations aforesaid, the 40 acres aforesaid shall stand in place of the land cultivated as last aforesaid. I'm gonna need to break this one down again. There's a whole bunch of aforesaids in this one. In case, so I'll start from here, may cultivate for the support of themselves and families in cases where they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements without the consent of the occupant. So without the consent of the person actually on that land, it being understood that in the event of the making of the laws, rules, and regulations aforesaid, the 40 acres aforesaid shall stand in place of the land cultivated as last aforesaid. So the 40 acres shall stand in place of the land cultivated.
So is that saying that basically the land that they were given, they basically had to make sure that they could take care of the land? I
I'm
guess.
thinking.
Go back up to the previous paragraph where it says, go down, where it says that while the said Freeman.
Mm.
Go over to the right. Up. Right.
Okay. That was
I like that while the said Freeman, talking about the European, now in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nation, remain in said nations respectively, they should be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves and families.
Mm.
Understanding that, now they're saying down a little further, if y'all can't get on the same page, then relate back to the 40 acres.
Oh, okay.
But
Got you.
it's telling you that the European peasant can have as much as they want.
Mm.
But then it says in cases where they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements, with the consent of the occupant, it being understood that in the event of making of the laws, rules, and regulations aforesaid, the 40 acres shall stand in place of the land cultivated as last aforesaid. So if you can't have as much land as you want, you can get that European peasant 40 acres. Because remember, the Freedmen's Bureau Act referred to the European getting his 40 acres. That
Right.
had nothing to do with us. We got to remember that. The freedmen are the Europeans getting their protection under the War Department. Can't forget that.
So, all right, Article 5. Did anybody want to pick up? Should I continue?
Anybody else want to build on that part we just read real quick?
I just think it's important to know that the freedman is European.
Very important.
Definitely. agree with
Seeing again back to the European just playing with their words. Now you see the freedmen coming into these Choctaw and Chickasaw nations with Negroes and Africans, but yet who still holds power? And that's why I said Chief Biko was alluding to that when he was saying, yeah, it's kind of like just dropping agents in there as regular, quote unquote citizens of a nation, but we don't work together in no ways. But like you said, the United States government is trying to get them to work together. They can't come together. So, everything's screwed. And of course, the Europeans gonna try to get as much as he wants. Nothing's gonna work.
Well, okay, great bill. Let's throw something else. Remember, we the people that set up that United States government, they had those citizens that wanted to participate the right way.
Right.
Then you had those rebel, which are under the Freedmen's Bureau Act. So it's almost like the United States government is punishing them by like, we're gonna put you with the Choctaw and the Chickasaw and let them figure out, because we really don't want to fuck with you because we just came out of a rebellion with you.
Let them figure it out.
We know who you are through the War Department, but we're gonna send your ass over there with the Choctaw and the Chickasaw and the people of African descent and the Negroes. So they throwing their poor white trash, they kind of throwing them away. Like, we really don't want to fuck with y'all because you already bucked.
Right, you tried to become the Confederate.
Exactly. So here, go ahead and be with them, type of shit. Yeah. Go ahead and be
Correct.
with them. Yeah, makes sense.
Which is why they still got that Yankee, downside. They still got that feeling because they shitted on them back then.
Right. So the European that understand what part of history their people come from, like, I'm seeing you.
Like the same thing that they went through in Europe. They just keep exiling their own people.
Right.
Yeah. Facts.
Perception
Facts.
going. They erase the negative parts of their history.
Alligator said something important this week. We're watching the United States government allow or give out a lot of money to Ukraine, other European nations, and we're like, hold on, how is this tying into who you are? But family is family. The European, whoever has a little bit of merit, yeah, they're gonna stick their hands out for them. But the people they don't respect, To hell with you.
Don't forget one thing. I was hoping you didn't bring that up, not to get off topic. They only had one debate before Biden became president. There was only one presidential debate, and that's when Trump told the militia to stand back and stand down. And that's when they're like, we can't have any more debates because it was the worst intellectual debate ever. But do you remember what Trump said in that debate? He exposed that Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was doing business with the Ukrainians.
Ukraine's, right.
So does it make sense that Biden's going to fund Ukraine? Because
Right.
he's got business interests, because him and his son is getting money with Ukraine.
Oh, snap.
Don't
That's
forget
crazy.
that.
No,
Gotta
you just
peep
put it
that.
together. You just put it together.
Go ahead, Chief of Keep Alive. What was you saying?
That's crazy. I just said that's crazy.
You see how we forget?
It's wild
Yeah,
when you know. It's wild when you know the reasons that these wars are really going on. Like a lot of the, not even a lot, all the wars that are going on for a specific reason. It's not what they tell us that it is.
Putin is really the good guy, and he's really the good European because he's trying to get rid of the Nazi and get rid of the corrupt regime that is doing business with the Bidens. So Biden has an interest in it. That's why he's sending weapons over there, financial resources.
He's trying to protect his assets.
Exactly.
Correct. Correct. Nah, great point. Way to bring that full circle too. Way to bring that full circle.
Jeez.
It get real funny.
Anybody want to pick up on Article 5? Right here.
I got you, boss, or chief. A general amnesty of all past offenses against the laws of the United States committed before the signing of this treaty by any member of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations is hereby declared, and the United States will especially request the states of Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas to grant the like amnesty as to all offenses committed by any member of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. I'm gonna stop right there. So general amnesty of all past offenses, pretty much clean slate against the laws of the United States committed before the signing of this treaty by any member of the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation is hereby declared, and the United States will especially request the state of Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas to grant like amnesty for all offenses. So it seems like they're trying to give the freedmen a clean slate within these nations.
You're exactly. I was hoping you would put right. Who was the amnesty document referring to?
Right.
It was
To
the rebellion peasants.
Right.
So now he's just made them a part of those two nations, and he's saying, "Look, we ain't gonna hold y'all.
Nothing. Just so we ain't gonna hold you accountable for nothing. Go be with them. Let them regulate you."
All right, because
And then it's like I see that they're bringing up these other states too, Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas. Those haven't been really mentioned much in the previous readings. So is it like that they're clearing land for them? Is that what's going on?
They pushing more and more west. They're more and more territories are coming about. We're just expanding.
Okay. Wow.
and that's important to mention because though Chief Pico and Chief Quietwater read that document specifically referred to who? The citizens who rebelled.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with Choctaw or Chickasaw. That was strictly the European citizens that rebelled. So since we make y'all citizens of these two nations, we gonna give y'all amnesty. They're not giving the Choctaw Chickasaw amnesty, they're giving the European.
Correct.
Amnesty
They had nothing to do with it.
Right. So the Chickasaw and Choctaw, you ain't got no amnesty. Everything's still kind of bump and grind, but within their own system, within their own nation.
I just thought of something. This explains why the phenotype changes too. We just said before we went live, you've never seen a mongoloid looking inventor.
Right.
Okay. Now they're telling you that they're crossbreeding now.
Correct.
You got Europeans that are going to be having sex with the African descent and the Choctaw and the Chickasaw. So now we're going to get that long hair, exotic look from people west of the Mississippi because they blended them all together in these two nations.
Amalgamation of the people.
Small little story. I was at work one day, had a call, blah, blah, blah. Met some guys from Oklahoma. He claimed to be black, just like me. I'm looking at him. I can tell he's black, but I can tell you're not this black. You're black in a way, but it's it's a lot of black in there, or a lot of different types of blacks. But I can understand the disconnect between us on the south, west, or east of the Mississippi versus them. But we are family. We really truly are. We just got to break it down how we break it down. Okay, what happened in each state? How are you black? And even though you know subconsciously you black because you probably know your dad or whoever, but how did you get to this level of blackness? Meaning the Mongoloid, or those people with the long hair, looking however they look, the Indian on the TV today. So we're pretty much reading, and it's pretty awesome. Negro still being us.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, where I left all of my bags. I got you. And the Choctaws and Chickasaw, anxious for restoration of any kind or of kind. My bad, I lost again. The restoration of kind and friendly feelings among themselves, hereby declare an amnesty for all past offenses against their respective governments, and no Indian or Indians shall be prescribed or any act or forfeiture. I lost again. Prescribed. Can you slide up a list a little bit for me? There we go. An Indian or Indian shall be prescribed or any act or forfeiture and confiscation passed against those who may have remained friendly to the United States, but they shall enjoy equal privileges with other members of said tribes, and all laws heretofore passed inconsistent herewith and hereby declare imperative. I'm gonna need a little help on that one. This government is saying too much. All right, hold on.
Thanks.
So no Indian and Indian shall be prescribed or any act or forfeiture. So you can't or confiscation passed against those who may have remained friendly to the United States. Okay. So they're pretty much saying you can still be Indian or Indians as long as as soon as we said push west, you was in agreement with it. No other amnesty for, the Freedman, the European got amnesty, but as far as the American, keep it cool or we're gonna have to pop it off. That's what I'm feeling for that.
All right, so they're blending in the European that rebelled with the American in these two nations. And so they're saying, yeah, we're not gonna take anything from you, right? We're not gonna do any act of forfeiture or confiscation passed against those who have remained friendly to the United States. So that's what that amnesty does. It almost wipes out their bad behavior. Same thing that happened January 6, 2021. They're getting amnesty because nobody's really getting locked up or there's nobody really manhunting for those people. So it's the same thing. We're gonna act like that didn't happen. We're gonna act like that civil rebellion didn't happen. You see what I'm saying? So we're not gonna confiscate anything from you. We just gonna let you blend in with these particular two nations and you can just basically move on. And we're gonna act like you're friendly with the United States government. I like this treaty because it clearly shows the difference between the American and the United States. In today's time, a lot of people get their words mixed up.
Right.
They act as if the United States covers the whole landmass of America. And it doesn't, because you got Mexico is a nation in North America. You got the 5 civilized tribes are nations. You see what I'm saying? But sometimes listen to people, they'll say America, like the United States has all of America. It doesn't. There's different governments.
You gotta be specific. Yeah.
Anybody else on that?
Or we left off that.
I'm good.
And all laws heretofore passed and consistent herewith and hereby declare imperative. The people of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations stipulate and agree to deliver up to any duly authorized agent of the United States all public property in their possession which belonged to the late so-called Confederate state of America, or the United States without any reservation, whatever. Whatever particularly ordnance stores and arms of all kinds. People of the Chicasaws agree to deliver up to duly authorized agent. Agree to deliver up to any duly authorized agent, United States, all public property in their possessions, which belongs to the late so-called Confederate. Speaking of you see, so it sounds like we're taking inventions, or we're taking anything that was on the land that belonged to the American, when they're putting in quotations the so-called Confederate States of America, meaning the Americans. You still talking about the freedmen or the rebels?
There's only one group of people that can be the so-called Confederate. That's the European. So any
so-called
area y'all were occupying, because see, we finna put these peasants, we finna put them in Choctaw Chickasaw Nation. So any area that they were occupying under the so-called Confederate, United States government's gonna get that back.
Yeah,
get that back.
Possessions.
Okay.
Because you can't be the Confederate.
Yeah,
Right.
Anything that you took while over here, we're gonna need all that back.
Right, and you can't be the Confederate because of what we do at the beginning of the class. It's not part of your Constitution.
Again, just showing again that it wasn't a civil war.
Right,
but
it wasn't a civil war.
Rebellion. Yeah.
I'm mad at my dad. And we want to do our own thing out here in Florida. Yeah, okay. Y'all want to keep going, or you want to stop it right there?
We can stop right here. That was the finishing of Article 5. So I guess next week we'll pick up on Article 6. But
Let's do that
great.
Okay. You stopped that. Got you.
That's the end of Article 5 there. But a lot of good information.
And that last little piece, I'm sorry, Chief Biko.
No, go ahead.
And arms of any kinds. Are they talking about weaponry?
Yeah.
We're taking all our weaponry. Okay.
Whatever kind of weaponry that rogue military had, that's that same rogue military that went into them bogus treaties with the Seminole Wars.
Right.
So now they're saying, we're gonna put y'all amongst these two American nations. Thing that y'all had, we taking it back, and we're gonna take possession. So really, it's really a land grab, because the so-called Confederate was never the real Confederate, which was our people.
Yeah, and these are all, like you said, all weaponry right here. Ordnance stores, so mounted guns. I just looked up the definition for that. Mounted guns, artillery. So anything that you had to fight against your own government during the so-called Civil War, we taking all that back. That's basically what that last part said. And again, it just highlights that they weren't Confederates.
Right.
Another document. So not only from the president in the Amnesty Proclamation, but we're now seeing in the 1866 Indian Treaty that those people that seceded and try to create this Confederate government was not actually the Confederates. They couldn't be.
Why couldn't they be?
They weren't American. They're Europeans.
There it is.
They're part of another government. And they stated that they could not be a part of a confederation. So again, just a great reading there. I guess before we close out, just wanted to get everybody's thoughts in regards to what they took away from this week, or not this week, but rather this first fiscal quarter. We went through a lot of documents that I think opened up, I know my eyes especially, because it kind of just aligned up with a lot of things that we were taught in, these brainwashed institutions called schooling. I just wanted to just hear from everybody what they take away from this first fiscal quarter.
Yeah, like you said, it's been a lot of information. I think the one thing is that Special Field Order 15 provided a lot of information, the 40 acres and a mule and things of that nature that we have definitely been brainwashed through the school system, and just hearing it for the first time, the real information, it has been important to me. And that's what I've taken from it. Information that we've been taught, however, hearing the real thing, how it really happened, and the true accurate information is what sticks out to me.
Sure.
I agree. The same things that sticks out to me is just the truth in the story.
Mhm.
We're reading things with evidence, so we don't even have to give opinion. We're reading factual doctrine. So that's what sticks out to me.
Correct, correct. Chief Alligator.
For me, I think, yeah, all of it, starting from, I think we started this year off with the Emancipation Proclamation, you know, really understanding what that document meant, the Amnesty document, understanding there was no Civil War. You can say that to somebody in a conversation over the phone or on the internet, but to have everybody read it for themselves, I think that was the biggest thing that I took from this first fiscal quarter's reading, because now you got to recalibrate your mind and understand that that did not happen the way that they told us it did, and the way that the propaganda through TV shows us. It's really like a 180 in your mind, and everybody's not going to be able to make that 180, because that's almost like, damn, that's almost like finding out that your mom is not your mom. Like, is
I
that
just want to add, my bad, not to cut you off, but I just want to add that everything is perception based. So whoever can control your perception, that's what your reality becomes. And if you don't have a true perspective on reality, then you're going to continuously live through this loop that's not something that you've actually created, but what you've just been shown and programmed to be accustomed to.
Right. Great point. Great point. And that kind of just goes back to one thing. I mean, all of it stuck out. All of it was great information from, like you said, from the Emancipation Proclamation all the way up to what we're reading now. But one question I always ask myself was, well, why did we have a 1965 Civil Rights Act if there was one in 1866? And after reading that document, it just highlights and further shows that because that 1866 one wasn't meant for our group of people. So it's like, once I understood that, it's like, okay, now I see why there was one in 1965, because this obviously didn't apply to us. Again, we try to say the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment put us into the US government. And then that act was supposed to give us, you know, the different rights and privileges that we're supposed to have. But after reading that, it didn't align with what we see anecdotally throughout history and within our lives. So it just further highlighted that that document definitely wasn't for us, and the documents prior to that and after that weren't meant for our people. That really just stood out to me. Let's see here.